Welcome to Lesson 3 in Through the New Testament in Ancient Greek for absolute beginners. My name is Helene Iste, and I'll be your guide through the New Testament in its original, beautiful language, the language of ancient Greece, which coincidentally was called Helleniste. Because each lesson will build on previous lessons, be sure to start with lesson number 1. Let's get started. In today's lesson, we're going to go through Matthew 2, verses 1 through 12, which is about the pilgrimage of the Magi. And we're going to learn first the 3 Greek genders, and then we'll talk about the Greek articles, pretty much just a definite article. And we'll explain soon why it's just the definite, not the indefinite. All right, first let's go ahead and read. Matthew 2, verse 1. Tude Jesu genethentas en Bethlehem tes Judaias, en he merais Herodu tu Basileos. Idu, magoi apa Anatolon, paragenanto, eis hierosaluma. All right, let's get started with the 3 Greek genders. So in English, we only have one gender, basically. All words, we don't really have a gender, actually. Other languages like Spanish and Italian and French have 2 genders, masculine and feminine. But Greek, we have also a neuter, masculine, feminine, neuter. And this is the same as in Latin, if you've studied Latin. So M, F, and N. And that's going to be, when you look at nouns and also adjectives and pronouns, you'll see that there is going to be a middle letter here. That's the gender. So here it's masculine. Here it's masculine. A participle actually does have gender, and we'll talk about that in the future. Here we have feminine. We have a feminine article, feminine noun again, masculine noun again, feminine noun. Here, this is a verb, so we don't have gender unless it's a participle, and a neuter noun. So we just have one neuter word in this verse that we just read. All right, so let's start from the beginning here. Our first example of a masculine noun is appropriately Jesus. So Jesus is the nominative, and here we're in the genitive, Jesu. Masculine because Jesus is masculine, and singular, noun, genitive, masculine, singular. Our next masculine is Herodu. So here that's the genitive, it's of Herod, a noun that's genitive, masculine, and singular. All right, the king is Basileos, and that's a noun, genitive, masculine, singular to match Herod. And then we have the Magi, are plural, nominative, masculine, plural, nominative because it's the subject. Magi from the east arrived. They're the subject. So we have nominative, masculine, plural, magoi. All right, let's look at the feminine. The first one is the city of Bethlehem, or I guess you would more likely call it a town, Bethlehem. And that's dative, feminine, singular, because it's following the preposition en. So en is followed by the dative. I always like to think of it as like if you are in a relationship with someone, you date them. So I always remember it that way. So en, Bethlehem. Now Bethlehem doesn't really change. It's a transliteration of the Hebrew, but it's dative, feminine, singular. We know because it follows en, feminine. And it's interesting, I've noted over here, it's just like in Latin, names of females, of countries, towns, trees, and islands, and also nouns denoting qualities and conditions are feminine. And here we have a town, so that is expected to be feminine. But then again, and here we have another region, which is also feminine. But over here we have Jerusalem, which is a city, and that's actually neuter, and it's plural. So that's a little bit of an exception. It's like the Jerusalems. All right, so Bethlehem and Judaias are both dative, feminine, singular. They're both feminine. This one is of Judea. It's a part. Bethlehem is a part of Judea. So this is the partitive genitive. When something's a part of something else or belongs to something else, then you would use the genitive. That's why this is in genitive, feminine, singular. All right, Hemerais is the days. Notice it's rough breathing mark. And then we have hemerais. The accent is on the second syllable. This is dative feminine plural. Again, following N, we have the dative. So another feminine. And our last feminine is down here, Anatolone. That is the Easts. Interesting. Maybe the places in the East. They came from places in the East. So it's the Easts. That's genitive feminine plural. And feminine, interesting, the East is feminine. So it kind of goes along with like locations. All right. And then lastly, we have neuter here. Hierusalima is the neuter plural. So interesting, Jerusalem is basically a plural neuter. It's like in the Jerusalems, but we don't really use that type of language in English. So a few other little things. I got these little factoids from Genders of Greek Nouns in the Wiktionary. So go ahead and look this up if you want to get more details about this. These little factoids are in ancient Greek. Now note, not all of these are used in the New Testament Greek because it doesn't have all the words that were used in ancient Greece. But there are about 4,000 nouns in feminine, about 4,500 masculine, about 2,000 neuter nouns, and about 139 nouns that have more than one gender. And that could be like for situations where it's something that could be both male and female, like a spokesperson. We won't get into that too much. But again, these are not all in the Greek New Testament, only some of these. Altogether, there's about 5,600 words, unique words. They have different forms in the Greek New Testament, some of which are verbs and some of which are prepositions and so forth. So a lot of these ancient Greek words were not in the Greek New Testament. All right, let's move on. Let's go ahead and read. We'll reread Matthew 2:1, and we'll also read Matthew 2:2. So speaking of two, Tude Jesu genethentas en Bethlehem tes Judaias, en hemerais Herodu tu Basileos, idu, magoi apa Anatolon paragenanto es Hierusalema, legantas, pu estin ha tekthes Basileos ton Judaion, Edamengar, autu ton austera en te Anatole, kai elthamen proskunesai auto. All right, let's learn a little bit more now. So let's talk about the definite article in Greek. So in English, we would say something like the... Oh, I'm not using my correct thing. We would say the boy, right? But we would also say the boys and the boys' ball, or to the boys, for the boys. I hit the boys. So no matter how we use boy in a sentence, it's always going to be the. You don't have to change the. But in Greek, you do. So depending on your noun and how it's used, the noun like boy, how it's used in the sentence, you're going to have different uses. You're going to have different forms of the definite article. Now, the good news is there is no indefinite article like a or an. Like we would have a boy or an apple. Those are indefinite articles, the a and the an. Those don't exist in Greek, so we don't have to remember those, all right? So Greek doesn't use that. They just basically don't include anything. So if you have just boy by itself, you know it's just a boy. There's certain circumstances when it might be the boy, but usually just boy by itself, the Greek word for boy, that is, would just mean a boy, just a random boy. But if you want to specify, it is the boy I was talking to you about, or the boy who came to my house, you have to put the direct object in Greek. All right, so let me just explain to you again, a little review from the last lesson. Nominative case is the subject, right? Whereas your direct object, if you're talking about the boy came to my house, the boy would be the nominative case because it's the subject. Whereas if you're talking about I hit the boy, sorry to be violent, I hit the boy would be in the accusative tense in Greek. All right, and then you can have the boys as the subject of a sentence, the boys came to the house, or you could have I hit the boys as the plural accusative. Now, if I talk about the boys' ball is in our yard, that would be genitive. The boy would be of the boy. The boy would be in the genitive. And if it's the boys' plural ball is in our yard, that would be genitive plural. Now, if I give a gift to the boy, that would be boy would be in dative. If I give a gift to the boys, that would be dative plural to the boys. So the boys would change. The ending of the word would change. Obviously, we're talking about boy in English, but the Greek version. And then I hit the boy, I hit the boys, as I mentioned already. All right, so simplifying this slide a little bit, we have singular nominative can be either masculine, feminine, or neuter. So for a masculine noun, you would have the in as ha. For a feminine noun, it would be hey, hey guys, ha, hey, and then ta, ha, hey, ta. Now, if you're talking about singular genitive of the boy, of the girl, of, in this case, child would be neuter, paideon, you could say to the boy, the boy's ball, the girl's ball would be tes, when you're talking about of the girl, and then to of the child. Dative, to, we talked about that before. This little iota subscript helps you understand that it's a dative. So to the boy would be to, and then whatever the word for boy is. To the girl, this would be the for to the girl. You'd have te with a little iota subscript. And then to would be before the neuter word. So the paideon, the child, is a neuter object, neuter noun in Greek. And then accusative is ton, tain, and ta. Now notice a few things. We know that ta and ta, the neuter nominative singular and the neuter accusative singular, are the same. And notice we also have the genitive singular is the same between masculine and neuter, and also the dative is the same between masculine and neuter. All right, so let's go to the plural. So the boys, as the subject of a sentence, this would be the for that. Boys would be something different, but that would be hoi, hi for feminine, and ta for neuter. Genitive is, ooh, this is helpful. That's why I have this like strong yellow box around it. Tone, tone, tone. It's the same for all three genders for plural, all right? So of the boys, of the girls, of the children, it would be the same. Tone would be the for each of those. And then the dative to the boys would be tois, and then tais, and then tois. And notice how it's the same for masculine and neuter, tois. And then accusative plural is tous, and then feminine is tas, and accusative plural neuter is ta. And notice how accusative and nominative are the same, also for neuter plural. All right, so I wrote it over here. First of all, we know that the masculine and neuter nouns have the same form in genitive, singular and plural, and dative, singular and plural. So we have singular, genitive, masculine is the same as singular, genitive, neuter. And singular, dative, masculine is the same as singular, dative, neuter. And we know that plural, genitive, masculine is the same as plural, genitive, neuter. Plural, dative, masculine is the same as plural, dative, neuter. All right, next. Neuter nouns have the same form for nominative singular and accusative singular. So that's these two. All right, so you can't tell them apart except by the context, whether it's a subject or direct object. And the same in the plural. Nominative and accusative are the same. And then the third thing, which is the case all the time, which is kind of rare for Greek, the genitive plural is the same for all genders. And they're always the same for genitive and neuter. That's always the case. But in the case of direct objects, the feminine is the same. So of the boys, of the girls, of the children, the in those examples is always tone. So I have a little chart down here so you can kind of see what I did as we go through and we find these different forms. So let's go ahead and read. Starting in Matthew 2, verses 3, we have acusas de ha basileus Herodes etarthe kai passa hierosaluma met autou kai synagogon pantas tous archieres kai grammates tu lau epunthaneto parauton pu hakristas genatai hoide epen auto en Bethlehem tes Judaeas hutos gar gegraptai dia tu prophetu. All right, so let's just talk about this for a sec. We have, get rid of that. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different articles in these two verses. First is nominative masculine singular. Ha. So that's from right here. That's going to be the most common one you'll see. That means it's the king. So here in English, we don't really, interesting. We just say King Herod. But in Greek, we have to say the King Herod, the King Herod. And you'll also find that a lot of times before just a name, like the John, you'll have the ha. So ha basileus Herodes means the King Herod, and this is the subject of the sentence, so it's in nominative. And notice how nominative masculine singular article matches nominative masculine singular king and nominative masculine singular Herodes. All right, next we have another article here, tous archieres, the chief priests. So tous here is accusative masculine plural, AMP. And then again, of the people. Now this tous actually goes for both of these, archieres and grammates, chief priests and scribes. And then of the people, remember of the, when you use of as a kind of partitive idea, or in this case, they're over the people's scribes, the people's chief priests, that would be genitive, masculine singular, to match the genitive masculine singular people, lau. And then here we have a feminine article, genitive, because it's Bethlehem of Judea. So we have tes, notice right here is tes, of Judea, Judaias, and that's genitive, feminine, singular, goes with the article. And notice in English we would just say of Judea, but in Greek they would always say of the Judea if it's a region. Bethlehem, notice, doesn't have a noun, or an article. Just for a town you don't need it, but for a region looks like you need it. All right, and then one last one is the prophet. Through the prophet, we know that it's written that Bethlehem is where the king will be born because it was written through the prophet. Now here, dia, through, goes with genitive, just like from, apa, goes with genitive. Basically like from the prophet or by the prophet. Is genitive masculine singular to match genitive masculine singular prophetu. All right, let's move on to the next slide. All right, Matthew 2, 6 through 7. Let's go ahead and read this. Get my highlighter. Okay, Kaisu Bethlehem. This is what the prophet wrote. Ge Juda. Udamos elachiste en tois hegemasen Juda. Exugar exelusitai hegumenas. Hostis poimane tan laon mu, tan Israel. Tate Herodes, lathra kalesas tus magus, e kribosin parauton tan kranan tu phenomenon asteras. All right, so let's talk about articles in this section. We have 6 of them. We have a dative masculine plural to go with the dative masculine plural rulers. So tois, dative masculine plural is tois. Hegemasen, the rulers, hegemasen of Judah. And then here we have accusative masculine singular to go with accusative masculine singular laon. So laon, ton laon. Accusative masculine singular ton. is there. Tan la'an. Tan Israel. So of Israel. Or you could just say the Israel. In English, we wouldn't say the Israel, but here you say the Israel. Again, accusative, masculine, singular, accusative, masculine, singular. Tan Israel, because his people and Tan Israel are the same thing. They're both accusative. All right. Tous magus. Again, tous is masculine, accusative, plural. So we know he called the Magi. The Magi is accusative because it's the direct object of calling. They were called. Tous magus. And then we have tan kranan, the time. He wants to know the time, so he inquires the time. Again, it's the object of inquire. So it's tan kranan. Again, tan. And then tu, genitive masculine singular, and then appearing is genitive masculine or singular. This is actually a participle. We'll talk about those another time. But it modifies star, genitive masculine singular. So these guys are all. So the appearance, or the time of the appearance, of the star. So the time of the star's appearance. That would be genitive, right? Because it's kind of the time of the appearance. All right? And we have Matthew 8 through 9 now. Kai pempsas autus es Bethlehem, epen poriuthentes exetasate, akribos peri tu paidiu, epande hurete apangelate moi. Hopos kago elthon proskuneso auto. Hoide accusantes tu basileos, e por you thesan, kai idu, ha aster, han edan en te anatole, pronegen autus, heos elthon, estathe epano, hu ein tapaidian. All right, so what do we want to look at here? Let's go ahead and notice again that we have 6 articles in these verses. In this case, we have 2 verses again. So the child, they were searching for the child. So that actually, because it's looking for, peri, is also a genitive. So after peri, you'll have genitive. Tu, here we again. And the child in this case is neuter. Like I said before, genitive, neuter, singular, genitive, neuter, singular, article. And that's tu. Right, notice it's the child. It's not just a child. They weren't looking for a child. They were looking for the child. If they were just looking for a child, like maybe to help them, whatever, learn how to play a child's game, then you wouldn't need the article. It wouldn't be definite. It would just be peri paidiu. All right, next one is hoi, and that's the Magi, right? So they heard the king. We're going to talk about sometimes you just need it by itself. In this case, it's nominative masculine plural, and it's modifying the Magi. So hoi here, nominative masculine plural, is them. It basically stands in for them. We'll talk more about that in the future. And then the king, they heard from the king. From the king is tu basileos, right? So they heard from the king. Tu basileos is another definite article because it's the king. It's not just any old king. It's the king, Herod, unfortunately. And then ha-aster, ha-aster is masculine, and it's nominative, masculine, singular, so that's why it's ha-aster, and it's the subject. The star, which they saw in the east. So n, remember, following n is the dative, because when you're in a relationship with someone, you're dating them. So en te anatole is going to be dative feminine singular, and that's why it's te. Look in the dative feminine singular is te. And notice the little iota subscript. That kind of gives us a clue that it's in the dative. And then lastly, we have ta paidion. Here, it's nominative, neuter, singular, right? Where was the child? So it's the child was there. So it's the subject of that clause. However, it would be the exact same if it were the direct object, because remember, the direct object is always going to be the same, nominative and accusative. You just have to tell by context. Ta paidion. This is our last slide, so hang in there. We're just going to read 3 more verses and then we'll be done for this lesson. Sorry, it's a little small, but I thought maybe we could we could enlarge it if you need it. Idantes de ton austera, e caresan haran megalen sfadra, kai elthantes esten oikian, edan tapaidian metamarias tes metras autu, kai pesantes pros ecunesan auto, kai anoixantes tus thesaurus auton, prosegnacan auto dora crusan kai libanan kai smurnan kai cremitasthentes cat onar me anacampsai pros Herodes di ales hadu ane coresan estain coran auton. All right, so just a few things to note on this slide. We have this one is ton austera, so it's the star, accusative masculine singular. Ton, right? Accusative masculine singular is ton. And they saw the star, so it's a direct object. That's why it's accusative. Next we have tapaidion, the child is accusative nominative singular. They found the child. It's the object of found. So tapaidion. Notice ta. And now remember, tapaidion, it's also going to be the same in nominative. All right, here we have Marias with Mary, tes metras autu, his mother. So here in Greek, you're going to use his mother with we don't use the the direct object with his. We would just say his mother. But here in Greek, they would say his the mother, or the mother of him is kind of a good way of putting it. Tes, because it's genitive, feminine, singular, right? Genitive, feminine, singular. Tes metras autu. Now, it's his mother. They're talking about they found the child with Mary, his mother. So it's basically his mother is following meta, right? So after meta, you use genitive. All right, and then tous thesaurus auton is their treasures, the treasures of them. Tous is accusative, masculine plural, right? Tous. Thesaurus is treasures, and they are opened. So it's the direct object of opened, which is why it's accusative. And one last one down here, tain is accusative feminine singular because it goes with Koran, their country. Remember we talked about countries being feminine? Accusative feminine singular. Auton again is of them, so their country, the country of them. Tain matches Koran, which is feminine. So tain. All right, well that is going to pretty much cover it for us this week. So I encourage you to keep going. I know it's a little complicated, but it's going to seem so easy once you get a little further along. It just takes a lot of practice, and it's totally worth it. So for now, I am going to say goodbye, and we look forward to seeing you next time.